Hi, everyone, and welcome to our February SHAC in Action webinar. My name is Ashley Hearn, and I will be welcoming and facilitating the first portion of the webinar today. If we want to go ahead and go to the next slide. So just to get started, a few housekeeping items. Feel free to use either your phone or your computer speakers. You can call in. All attendees are muted for the duration of the webinar, but you can submit questions via the chat box. The webinar is being recorded, and we will be sending out the link to the recording and to the slides following the webinar. And if you are participating for CEU credits, please email webinar@itstimetexas.org, and we will be able to get the certificates out to you. These webinars are brought to you by Action for Healthy Kids in collaboration with several partners. As I mentioned, my name is Ashley Hearn, and I'm with It's Time Texas. But we work with a variety of partners to provide resources for SHACs across the state as part of the the Texas Action for Healthy Kids Steering Committee. And the work we do wouldn't be possible without the support of all of these partners. Next slide. One thing, there are a couple of announcements that I wanted to go ahead and make as we get started. One is that the 2019 SHAC Awards application period opened yesterday. So I would encourage everyone to nominate the SHAC in your school district. We just want to recognize SHACs for all the work that they are doing to promote health and wellness within districts across the state. And it's an opportunity just to be recognized on the SHAC webpage, and then also at the Healthier Texas Summit, which will take place in October, and at the Talk Annual Summit. So we just had our summit for this year last Friday, so this will be at the 2020 Talk Summit. I also wanted to let you know that the Talk grants open today, both for the breakfast grants and the Game On grants, so for equipment and community gardens, things like that. And that deadline for those applications is early April. I also wanted to go ahead and let you know that our next webinar for the SHAC in Action series will take place on April 9th, and the topic will be wellness plans. At this point, I would like to go ahead and introduce Michelle Smith with Texas Action for Healthy Kids, and she will be presenting this first portion on selling school health.
Thanks, Ashley. I have a little bit of a gravelly voice. I'm recovering from some bronchitis, so I apologize. I did see there were a couple of people that said it sounded fuzzy. Hopefully that has cleared up. Yes, we will be emailing out a link to the recordings, and we will also send the slides. So look for those in the next couple of days after the webinar. So we're talking today about how to make the case or how to sell school health. I put together just a few quick points. I did 20 years in advertising and marketing before I got involved with school health, and the keys to success are the same regardless of what it is that you're trying to sell. The first thing you have to do is educate people. They have to understand that there is the problem and what the problem is. And that for you to do that, you have to explain. A lot of times people aren't even aware. I know that in Texas, we've been working on school health a long time, but it wasn't an issue until Dr. David Thatcher said there's an obesity epidemic. Then people began to see the problem, and then they would listen to what are some of the solutions. Another thing that is really helpful, if you're trying to explain something to someone and show them how important it is make it personal. If they're your children, or you have a child, or you know someone that has a child that really has trouble sitting still in class, and they understand that if they go out to recess for 10-15 minutes, they come back a lot better prepared to focus. They're going to relate to that better, and it's going to be a lot easier to get them to understand why it's important that we have recess. Many times people bring up statistics and information, and those are good, but if they're state and national, sometimes it doesn't make as big an impact. There are lots of resources out there with information on a county level or even on a local level. So finding the information that supports what's going on in your school or in your city. I know that if you're looking for numbers on lack of physical activity or obesity numbers, you can get those from different sources. We're happy to share those sources with you. Another thing that is important is making sure that the information you're providing is something that the people you're talking to are interested in or will relate to. So if you're talking to a school administrator, they're going to be more interested in something that's going to impact test scores or the bottom line. But if you're talking to a parent, they're going to care about what's good for their kids. And then if you're selling school health and you want something from people, asking. Sometimes you think it sounds like, everybody should know that they're needed or their help is wanted. But a lot of times I've found out that nobody ever asked a parent to be involved, or nobody ever explained that it would be helpful to have someone participate. So when you're working on things around school health, making sure that you have an ask at the end of whatever it is that you're talking about. We've been working on a state level with a committee through the Texas Department of Agriculture on school wellness policies. And one of the things we felt was necessary was something that schools could share with their school boards or their school administrators. So I'm sharing this as an example of something that was developed specifically to appeal to school administrators and school boards. The information on here relates to the increased focus that students have if they have physical activity. Also, the tie between nutrition education and focusing on schools, academics. Tried to bring in that these are not expensive, difficult things to do, so that it takes some of that fear away, because a lot of times they're concerned that if they try to implement something new, it's going to be very costly. So those are kind of things we hit on this side. Then on the other side of this document, we explained that it is something that's required if you're part of the school meal program, that you have wellness policies, and that your school health advisory council is the group that can serve as your wellness team. Then talked about the financial impact when students miss school, and students who are overweight or obese miss more days than students who are not. And then also the long-term impact and fiscal impact of unhealthy kids or kids who are obese over time. And then, as I mentioned, we did put in an ask at the bottom, or a next steps, for what the school district, school administrators should be doing. So this is something that is available on the, I believe it's on the Square Meals website for Texas Department of Agriculture. So if you're trying to convince your school administrators or school board of the importance of wellness policies, this might be something you might want to look into. We'll probably, I can attach this to our email out to y'all as well. So basically, educate, make sure that people are informed, before you try to engage them. Otherwise, they're not going to be as receptive. Then engage them in a way that they can relate to, if at all possible, and hopefully then you will have advocates. Be sure and keep it simple. One of the things we've run into over the years is there's so much information out there on health that people get intimidated and they just back away, say, I can't get 60 minutes in a day. We can't do everything that eat all the fruits and vegetables that are required. So making it feasible or making it doable, small steps can help you get your students, your teachers, and your all your school personnel more inclined to be involved. Knowing your facts, there's so much good information out there from so many different resources. You can find a lot of that at Action for Healthy Kids. And then be sure that you have respected community members, leaders in your community, a doctor, a school board member, anyone you have that are well respected can certainly help you build your case about school health. Never try to do it by yourself. One person is much easier to ignore than several, and there is usually at least one or two other people out there that will get with you. I know we have there's a new Facebook page around recess now, and they're building a whole network across the state to support recess. And then finally, don't give up. It does take multiple times. In the world of advertising, they say it takes at least 3 introductions of something before people are even beginning to be aware. And then after that, you still have to do more just to get them educated and get them engaged. So keep trying. In Austin, it took us 6 years to get a recess policy passed. It took a lot of educating. Don't forget that people move and change, so you're constantly having to educate new people. So that is just a quick overview from me on how to sell school health. And now I'm going to turn it over to some of our school people who are down in the trenches actually doing this work. Let me see, I need to get you unmuted, don't I? Sorry. Okay, Jim, you are on.
Okay, thank you very much. My name's Jim Dees. I'm actually the science curriculum coordinator for Huffman ISD. We're just northeast of Houston. And being a SHAC facilitator is one of my additional duties, or as assigned type things. So when Michelle and Ashley asked me to participate in this, I picked 3 things that I thought were kind of important at selling school health, and it's all about engagement, engaging parents, engaging campus and staff, and then engaging the school board. So the things that I've learned kind of by the School of Hard Knocks is that when you're recruiting members, and this is part of this is a repeat of what Michelle just said, but when you're recruiting members to be on your SHAC, recruit members that are well respected, especially the parent members, well connected in the community, so that, you know, the more little fingers that they have going out into the community, the better. And also to recruit parents with diverse opinions. It's a lot easier if you have people on the SHAC that all share the same opinions as you do. Makes the SHAC meetings go very smooth. But I found out that, again, by School of Hard Knocks, that you can get things passed through the SHAC and take it to the school board, but then you're probably going to get some pushback if you haven't taken care of those diverse opinions in your SHAC meetings. And then show parents, or all the members of the SHAC, but especially the parents, that they can make a big difference. So a little bit more on each one of those 3 bullets. Again, the parents that are connected can be great advocates in the community about getting the information that you want out into the community. A couple of examples of what has happened in our SHAC. You know, every time the school lunch rules change as far as what they're allowed to serve and that sort of thing, our child nutrition director gets a lot of pushback, and he's on our SHAC. And so a lot of the parents came in, I guess, 2 years ago, and they were saying, you know, I don't even know why we have school lunches anymore. Our kids won't eat it. There's not enough food on the plates. There's not this, there's not that. And so over the probably 2 or 3 meetings, he actually explained to them the constraints that he was having to work under, the amount of calories that he could have, the amount of sodium that he could have, that he had to have certain colors of vegetables on each plate, those sorts of things. And I think most of the parents were kind of amazed at, the limitations that he had. And then when he started explaining to them that, he said the food companies that we buy our food from haven't even caught up with the laws yet. So, it's hard for us to even find food that meets these constraints. It kind of made a big impact on him. He then invited the parents to come eat at the cafeterias, so they could see what was there, not just listening to their kids. A few of them took him up on that. And I think they were pretty impressed with what they were doing. He explained that the child nutrition department is a standalone business, so it's not funded by the school district. It's either through federal money or from lunch money. And so the point is that once the parents on the shack kind of understood the whole story, they were able to go out into the community and kind of spread that word. So instead of just a lot of nastiness coming up on social media about, bad school lunches and they don't care and all that, it kind of turned around to like, working under the constraints they're working under, they actually have some pretty impressive lunches and, things. So it works to have those people that are very connected. The parent members that have diverse opinions, again, it makes your shack meeting easier if everybody has the same opinions as you do, but you're going to, have that pushback later. And probably the biggest example we had of that is when we passed a sex ed policy a few years ago, or sex ed curriculum. It went through the school district, and we had one parent in the district who was very against what we had chosen. And she would come literally to every school board meeting and do the 5-minute public comments thing and complain about our sex ed program. And in the last year, my superintendent, because superintendents have to respond to the people that make those public comments. Our superintendent came back and when he was talking to her, he suggested that she become a member of the shack. And so she's on her shack now, and she's had some issues with still has issues with the sex ed program. But I think the good thing that's happened with that is that she realized that it's not a sex ed program that Jim Dees was pushing or the school district was pushing, but it was a sex ed program that parents in the community had reviewed and gone through. So I think that makes a big difference. And she still doesn't like the program, but she is a lot more understanding about it now than she was in the past. Showing them that the involvement can make a difference. I've had several parents that have been on my shack with me for over 10 years now. And, their kids started out in elementary and are about to graduate. And in a smaller district like us, a lot of the parents that are involved in things like shack are involved in a lot of other committees. And one of the things that they've commented to me about, that the reason that they've stuck with the shack is that they feel like that when they have an issue, it gets dealt with, and the district listens to them and they can make a difference. So make sure that you not just tell them that their involvement makes a difference, but show them that their involvement can make a difference. One quick example, we had some rumors going around. There was a news thing about older school buildings in the city of Houston having lead in the water. And so a bunch of parents on social media started, talking about that probably some of our older campuses had lead in the water, and they were complaining about it. And so one of the packed shack parents brought it up at one of our meetings, and my boss, the assistant superintendent, attends whenever he can. He went out the next day and actually had the director of maintenance and operations hire a company to come in and do testing on all of our campuses. So at the next meeting, we were able to give those results to the parents, And it made a huge impact on them. Okay, now we can go back and say, that they did test the water when we asked, and everything's good. Next slide, please. So on the campus and staff involvement, the big things I think on that are just a model to the campus principals and to their staff what you want them to be doing. We started a thing at the central office where we've got a worksite wellness bulletin board up in our lunch area. We've got some infused water dispensers that we put up. We have scales and a blood pressure in the lunchroom area for people to use with logs where they can actually log their information and track it. And so when principals come over for meetings, or whenever we have teachers over for meetings, and they see the worksite wellness bulletin board, they drink the infused water, they see the things like the scales, the principals are pretty, and then we ended up going out and buying infused water dispensers and scales and blood pressure cuffs and all that for the campuses. And so the principals are starting to implement that a little bit more now. One thing that we're trying to do that I haven't had as much success as I would like, but we'll continue to push on, is sharing new information that we get from webinars like this or the meetings that we go to at Harris County for health leadership group meetings. Things like brain break activities and nature walks. That's just something that it's a continuing work on our part. Next slide, please. A couple of things that I'll say about the school board involvement with your SHAC and getting them engaged is, if at all possible, do have, and Michelle mentioned this, but try to get a board member on the SHAC. A lot of times, a lot of the issues that parents have, the board member, or like in my case where I've got senior district leadership, the assistant superintendent at the meeting, a lot of those issues can be nipped in the bud in a single meeting, and answers can be given. So that's always good to have. And then you absolutely have to be completely transparent anytime you're dealing with the board. A lot of times there's things that'll happen that you don't really want to have to go back and talk to them about. But if you try to hide something from them, you're going to lose their trust. And you know how it is with trust. Once you've lost it, it's harder to get it back than it is to gain it in the first place. So just be very, very transparent. An example on that, when the policy came out about having unassigned EpiPens in the district, we jumped on it, and we've got an emergency room nurse that is on our SHAC, and we've got our school nurse. One of our school nurses is always on the SHAC, and the SHAC decided that was something that they wanted to move on with. We moved a little bit too fast, and so we went up with a policy and recommended it to the board, and they approved it, and we got EpiPens in and had them at the nurses' offices and all of that. But then when the rules came out from the state level, Department of Health, the rules that they wrote were saying that we had to have those EpiPens and people that could administer them available during all hours that the campus was open. And our senior leadership just didn't feel comfortable. They didn't want to have to certify everybody to be able to administer EpiPens. They wanted to have a limited number of nurses and athletic trainers, that sort of thing. And so I had to go back to the board and ask them to rescind the policy that we had just asked them to approve a month or so, or less than a year before. So it's not comfortable sometimes when you have to go back and do that, but I think you keep their trust if you go in and admit when you made a mistake by moving too fast and ask their forgiveness and go back. So that's my advice on that. So that's all I've got for you, Michelle.
Okay, thank you so much, Jim. I'm going to unmute Amber and turn it over to her.
Hi, good morning. This is Amber McNeish. I am from Pasadena ISD. I also have my coworker with me. Her name is Elise Neff, and she's the coordinated school health specialist, and I serve in the PE health and wellness coordinator position. So before we start, I just wanted to give you a little information about our school district. We have 66 campuses in all, and 77% of our campuses are economically disadvantaged. And the reason I wanted to mention that is we have sort of had a few struggles in engaging parents. We have a few wins to share with you today, and so I just wanted you to keep that in mind. The other thing I wanted to let you know is that we are both pretty new to these roles. I served as the coordinated school health specialist for 2 years before I was named the PE health and wellness coordinator. And then Elise she oversaw a grant that we had that was for coordinated school health efforts. So I'm going to turn over the first slide to Elise. If you'll go to the next slide, please.
So like Amber said, I am new to this position. I was hired in April, and the week after I was hired, she said, "You have a SHAC meeting." I said, "Oh, okay, thanks." And so, she was great, and she helped me out through a lot of it. And we talked about afterwards. She's like, "You don't by any means have to do it like we've always done it." And so I started asking questions like, why weren't there very many parents there? Why did we not have community members there? How can we, what have we done in the past? And so we talked through some of that. And I think after running my first SHAC meeting to the first one this year, I looked at the parents are key, and we know that. And like Jim said, and even Michelle said, they have to feel valued. They have to feel that they are there for a reason. It's not a sit and get kind of purpose. Now, we kind of stack our deck, and we have if you look under participation, you see EIWA. That stands for Excellence in Wellness Award. And it is a local award that we have for our campuses. But one of the requirements to get one of the points in a section is that you have to have a parent designee come to at least one SHAC meeting during the school year. Through that increases our participation because the campuses want this award. And so they'll find one parent that says, "Hey, can you go to this meeting? It's from this time to this time." And they show up, and that was great. But then that's when we noticed, I'm like, they're just sitting here listening to us. There's no, giving your input kind of thing. And so we kind of needed to go from there. For participation, like I said, the Excellence in Wellness Award, we send out flyers at the beginning of the school year, or actually in the summer, for the campus chair people to pass out to those parents, and they hand it to a couple of them. So if somebody can't make it, maybe there's somebody else that can. So there's flyers that are posted. There's like postcards that they can send home. And what I just started doing, because we have a SHAC meeting next week, is sending personal emails. So when they sign in, I have them list their email address. And we've done that before, but it was kind of hit or miss how it was used. And so this week I sent an email saying, "Hey, don't forget we have a meeting next week from this time to this time. And if you could let me know if you're coming, because we're going to purchase some sandwiches." And I've got a lot of responses back saying, "Thank you so much for reminding me," or "I knew the date but not the time." And so I think that is helping. With
free food also helps.
Free food helps, it does. For participation, getting them there is half the battle. The other half the battle is the feedback part. I don't want them just to sit there and take in the information. So we've kind of set up different things. We've usually done an exit ticket. So we have 3 or 4 questions that, specific questions that they answer. And when they leave, they turn that in. We have a local business that gives out, I'll just say it's Chick-fil-A has donated some like free gift cards for us, or not gift cards, but
They're gift cards.
Gift cards, okay, for like a free sandwich or something like that. And so when they turn in their exit ticket, I thank them for their time because I know it takes time out of their day and for their participation. And I give them a Chick-fil-A card or something small for thanking them to come. Just recently, we started using Mentimeter. If you have not used it, it's free. And that they can answer from their phones. That way on the Mentimeter and on the exit tickets, it allows them to share anonymously. So if they have something that they just don't like, but they're afraid to raise their hand and speak out, it gives them the opportunity to voice their concern. And then we can take that information, which Amber's going to share, to the next step for people in the process. The other thing that I have started working on is small groups. We are very guilty of, our SHAC executive committee of all kind of sitting together. And so I'm working on trying to take those people and splitting them out amongst our parents that are there. Parents will sit together because they feel comfortable together. But they're not going to share their opinion. I feel that if I put them in small groups with somebody that can kind of run that small group, and it may just be by tables, it may be by executive committees, but I feel like they would be able to share their opinion a little bit more if there's only, say, 3 or 4 of them in a group, or something like that. So that is something that I'm going to be working on within our district as well. Because I think this time that they're coming back for this meeting, or at our last parent forum, we had a lot of people actually participate and ask questions, and I feel like they felt valued, that their opinion mattered. Well, of course their opinion matters, but what I think they feel is I can say something, but nothing is going to be done about it. So the next slide that Amber is going to talk about, that's what it talks about, like sharing how this process goes. And Jim said it very well when he said that you have to explain everything. I did it at the last meeting. Like, they don't understand why we have to read and approve the minutes. And not even a why, but like just saying, okay, before we start, this is what's going to happen during this meeting. Because if you have somebody that's never been there, it can be a little bit overwhelming. So I'm going to let Amber, we're going to go to the next slide, and I'm going to let Amber take over from there.
So in the last year, we really worked hard to get some guidelines introduced for recess. We were unable to get a policy in place, but we are very confident that our guidelines will be accepted by Cabinet very soon. And this is the model that we used, and we really feel like it was strong, and we'll probably use it in the future. So the first item is that the issue is brought to the SHAC. Our students need recess, and our campuses need support for that recess. So then the SHAC researched recess in general and worked to develop recommendations on this issue. So it looks like it's only 1 to 2 steps, but this was basically a year-long process. At every meeting, we had either a presenter on the value of recess, and Elise did a bunch of research on it. She shared, best practices. So that's what step number 2 is. Getting researching and then working at a plan for recommendations on the issue. Then from there, Elise and myself, the specialist and the health coordinator, brought the recommendations to our SHAC. So our SHAC is Campus Health Advisory Committee chairs. So these folks are people that support coordinated school health on each campus. These are the folks that we communicate with directly about any items related to coordinated school health, the wellness policy, and the wellness plan. So we presented these recommendations to the SHAC. They gave us input on and feedback on the items as far as how their campus would take the guidelines. And then we also presented the same guidelines to our decision making committee for the whole school district. And that's what the DEC is. So we got input from both of those 2 groups, which are pretty influential in our district. We took their input and we went on to step number 4, where we took those input items back to the district SHAC. And so the district SHAC reviewed their input and came up with their final recommendations for our recess guidelines. And then lastly, our recess guidelines do not need to go to the school board. They'll just go to our executive cabinet members for review. But if they were to go to the school board, that would be number 6. So instead of school board, it would say cabinet there. And then from there, the district staff and SHAC chairs would share all the recommendations. So they'll be our contacts to share the recess guidelines to campuses and to principals. And then lastly, the progress on the recommendations from the SHAC will be shared with the SHAC and reported to the school board. So that's sort of the cycle that this one issue took, and it was really good for us to get feedback from SHAC parents, the DEC, and the SHAC chairs before trying to take it to cabinet. So if you'll go to the next slide, I can share an additional win with you. So recently, I got a phone call from who I thought was a parent explaining to me that we needed some speed bumps. And I was like, okay, it's another speed bump issue for a campus. And then finally, I wasn't understanding what he was saying. So I finally said, are you a parent on the SHAC? And he said, no, but I received a petition from you for speed bumps. And I could not even. When he said that, I remembered that 2 years prior, a parent had brought an issue to our attention at the SHAC, and it was for speed bumps at his campus. He happened to be on a campus that is working really hard on their Safe Routes to School plan and had multiple walk to school events, encouraging students to walk. It's a neighborhood campus. They had a bike to school event where local businesses donated bikes. So we had over 100 kids riding their bikes. So he brought this to the SHAC that, we're encouraging students to walk and ride their bikes to school, yet the street that the school is on is not necessarily safe for them to be walking. So he brought that to us. The SHAC agreed that yes, as part of the Safe Routes to School plan, that this elementary does need speed bumps. So then we met, Elise and myself met with Healthy Living Matters, which is one of our community members within Pasadena, and our community grant supporter, which is MD Anderson, and said, yes, we've been focusing on all of these Safe Routes to School events, and this parent would like to see speed bumps. And they were like, absolutely, that should be part of our plan. So they submitted a request to the city for speed bumps. So this was 2 years in the works. So I get the call back. The city studied the area and agreed, yes, speed bumps are needed. And because it's for school safety, it was automatically approved. Now I was like, but we submitted that 2 years ago. And he was like, ma'am, we get lots of applications for speed bumps. So that's why it took a while. So right now we're in the process of just waiting for the speed bumps to be installed. But this was a win for us because the parent brought it up to us at the SHAC. Even though it was something on our radar, because a parent brought it up, we were able to push it up as a priority. And so our process worked. So at next week's SHAC meeting, we will share with them that because of their voice, we were able to get a change for one of our local schools. So for us, that's a huge win, and that's important for us to really celebrate our accomplishments from the SHAC, because like Elise was saying, that parents need to feel that their work within the SHAC is valued and it's important, and it's not just something that they have to show up and be that 51% of parents on paper. So that's sort of where we are right now, and like Ollie's already said, we're both pretty darn new to this. And so even just hearing Jim speak about the things he has going for his district, I always get new ideas from others. So if you're hearing these things and you're a school district that has a SHAC up and running, these webinars are really a platform for us to share ideas for things that have worked for us. So, hey, that's all we have for y'all. Thank you very much.
Okay. Thank you, Tim. Ashley, do you have anything, or I have one question here. I don't know if anybody has questions, you can type them into the question box. We're having a few technical difficulties, and when I check questions, the screen goes out. But I do have one question regarding the wellness awards that you guys mentioned. Excuse me. How does that work? Do you have, do they fill out a form? What exactly?
So we have a form. It's an application. It's based around the WISC model. And we have different categories, and they can earn different point values in each category. And whoever asked the question, if you would like to email us, we are always happy to email it out to people.
We can share it with Michelle so she can post it in the notes or whatever.
But but each category has a total points of 4 points all the way down to 0 points. And after you have the whole year to complete everything, collect everything, you submit the application to us, and we have a committee that reviews everything that they've submitted. Whether it's pictures or newsletters or anything that promotes health and wellness within their campus and or community. If it's within our application, then we have different prizes according to point values. And so, we have a platinum level, a gold level, silver, and bronze, and then a participant. And we have a local business here that also helps sponsor our prizes by giving, depending on the level, monetary value, a banner, shirts, and then they get recognized at the administration meeting, principal meeting, for all their efforts. And, it's so funny. We always joke, competition fuels the fire. We started off with 7 or 8.
It's grown every single year.
Yeah, so we're up to, out of 66 campuses, we're at like 30, close to 30. So it's not everybody, but it is definitely something that has helped our.
What really helps us with this award is that it incentivizes the sort of programming efforts that we need campuses to do. So a lot of the items align with our wellness policy and plan. And then also, like Lee said, the WISC model. So we're happy to share that. And then if anybody has feedback on it, we would love to have that as well.
I think that's a really important way of marketing wellness. I know of some other districts that, that's how they got their principals on board, because one of the principals got an award for having the healthiest school, and then the rest of the principals wanted that award. And so it can definitely build. So I think that's exciting. And having the SHAC awards for the districts, I think, is another way of really bringing some focus to wellness and giving it some credibility. Thanks, guys. Any other tidbits or comments y'all want to share with our audience? I don't have any other questions right now, so last call.
I definitely think, I think it was Jim that said it, like, it's baby steps. It's, what is the most important thing, right now? And, for Pasadena, it was getting parents there. Now we're kind of working on, okay, we're starting to get parents there. How can we let them know this is not a meeting run by us, it's a meeting run by them and their voice. So I think small steps, and don't try to do everything at once.
I agree.
Yeah, I'll echo what Amber, I believe it was Amber, was talking about earlier, about using platforms like this and the SHACs convening meeting that we were at, I believe, last week. We do learn a lot of things from other people. At the SHACs convening, I got an idea of using subcommittees, standing subcommittees. We do subcommittees, but not standing ones. And I just kind of kicked myself for not having thought of that earlier, because a lot of the things that subcommittees could be doing, I was doing for them. And so that will save me a lot of time. And then we have a SHAC meeting this evening. And so I'm going to bring that up to the SHAC meeting. And then today I'm sitting here writing notes about the Excellence in Wellness Award. And I'm going to bring that up in our SHAC meeting tonight also, about things that we may try to, improve. So yes, absolutely. We learn from each other and we get better from learning things from each other. So.
And I will say, for the Excellence in Wellness Awards, a lot of it's recognizing the good stuff that these campuses are already doing. And like you said, Michelle, it's marketing. Doesn't matter if we're in education, you market what the good things that you're doing to show people, hey, we're hard workers. Like these the PE teachers and campus supporters are hard workers and they're doing amazing things. Why not share that with everybody else?
Well, what always amazes me is we've gone in and done school health indexes and found out that schools were doing so many things and they don't even think about them as being part of wellness. You know, it's like, yeah, we have school gardens. And I'm going, well, you have school gardens, you're teaching kids about fruits and vegetables. They're, you know, it's shown in some studies that if you have a school garden, it usually improves the amount of fruits and vegetables kids will eat in other parts of the day. So sometimes schools aren't even aware of the good things that they're doing until, you know, they start reviewing it and thinking about it. And so doing those awards really kind of brings that focus and lets them realize they are doing a good job in some cases.
Absolutely. And one of the things that we really encourage campuses to do in relation to the award, leverage what you're already doing and make it a healthy activity. If you're already having a literacy night, because it's one of the requirements in your campus improvement plan, how can you incorporate physical activity within that literacy night? How can you incorporate some mini health lesson within that literacy night? So leverage things that you're already required to do. Don't make it something extra. And that really, I think, resonated with a lot of our teachers and principals. And they were like, oh, we can double dip. Absolutely. We encourage double dipping in this situation.
Yeah, exactly. Thank you all so much for joining us today. I hope this has been helpful. We will send out a follow-up email in the next couple of days with a link to the recording, as well as a PDF file of the slides. We'll also send the link to the Facebook recess group, as well as the handout for administrators. And then if you guys want to send your award information, we'll send that as well.
Sure thing.
And we'll also send a link. We are going to be switching from GoToMeeting to a new service called Zoom. So if you signed up for April, you may be asked to sign up again, but we will include information on how to do that in the next week or so as well. Thank you all. I hope you have a great rest of the week and keep doing great things for our kids.